The logic is, the reason they want to do that is that if they can do large-scale communal gerrymandering across this country and political gerrymandering without the courts holding them up, then 2029 election becomes a lot easier for them. It is very clear that this act needs amendment. You have to remove the link to the census and to delimitation from this act, because women's reservation is a flat rate 33%. If you want to link it to the census, then women's reservation will have to be 48 to 49%. Will any of our parliamentarians, male parliamentarians, accept that? So the opposition has to first of all say, this has nothing to do with women's reservation. You are using women's reservation to push a different agenda. Now come back to women's reservation, correct what is wrong in the Nari Vandan Shakti Adhiniyam.
But in the end, what would you really say to the government? It's an insecure government which is trying to bring in this kind of maybe an underhand tactics just to stay in power, just to sustain themselves in power? Hello and a warm welcome to HW News Network, your one-stop show, truth be told, for some engaging and thought-provoking conversations. Delimitation and not reservation for women in legislatures is a real issue over which the centre has called a special session of parliament this week. This is what Congress Parliamentary Party Chairperson Sonia Gandhi has said. She's written an op-ed in the Hindu newspaper where she said that the government's delimitation plan, according to unofficially available information, is extremely dangerous and is an assault on the constitution itself. Now, this comes after Prime Minister Narendra Modi wrote to all parties seeking support for an amendment to the Women's Reservation Bill. Now, Women's Reservation Bill, or the Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam, provides for 1/3 reservation for women in legislative bodies. It was passed in Parliament in 2023. A proposed legislation seeks to de-link its implementation from the 2027 census and base it on the 2011 census to ensure that it comes into force before the 2029 general elections. Now, what Sonia Gandhi has written, and I'll just read out a few points from the article which she's written, and I'll also try and show you that op-ed which Sonia Gandhi has written. She's made a number of significant points, and then through this article, we'll try and understand the politics of delimitation as well. Sonia Gandhi has said that Prime Minister is reaching out to the opposition to support bills that it wants to bulldoze in a special session of Parliament when the election campaign in Tamil Nadu and West Bengal is at its peak. There can be only one reason for the extraordinary hurry, which is to derive political advantage and place the opposition on the defensive. The Prime Minister is, as usual, being economical with the truth. That is what Sonia Gandhi's article says. Now, she also said that it was the centre that had linked the Women's Reservation Bill with the next census. Now, the opposition had not asked for this condition. In fact, the leader of the opposition in the Rajya Sabha, Mallikarjun Kharge, had forcefully demanded that the reservation provision be implemented from the 2024 Lok Sabha elections itself, and for reasons best known to itself, the government did not agree. This is what Sonia Gandhi has written. And then she makes a very important point. She says that now we are given to understand that Article 334A will be amended to make women's reservation applicable from 2029 itself. Now, why did it take the Prime Minister 30 months to make this U-turn? And why can he not wait a few weeks to convene the special session? Opposition leaders have also written to the government not once but thrice, requesting that an all-party meeting be convened after the last phase of elections is over in West Bengal on April 29th to discuss what the new proposals of the government are. But that perfectly reasonable request has been turned down. Instead, the Prime Minister has resorted to writing op-eds, making appeals to political parties, and organizing sammelans. It is an underhand tactic that reflects the Prime Minister's one-upmanship and his my way or the highway approach to decision making. This is what Sonia Gandhi has very clearly written in her op-ed. Now, today, what we are going to discuss is that what was the need for this special session of Parliament, bringing in the amendments to the Women's Reservation Bill? Why in the middle of the election? What is the politics behind it? And of course, if delimitation is the main idea, which according to unofficial sources are clearly making it visible. So what is going to happen then? And what are the pitfalls? What are the challenges? Is it a challenge to the constitutional structure, to the federal structure as well? So we'll try and understand all of this. And joining me this evening is a very special guest, Radha Kumar, who's an author, columnist, policy expert, and she's working on the delimitation document for a very long time. Thank you so much, Radha, for joining. And my first question to you, of course, is that just 2-3 days ago, you attended a very important meeting on delimitation. Now, the Prime Minister bringing in this special session of Parliament, and he's trying to implement the Women's Reservation Bill in 2029 itself. What is the main cause? What is the main hurry? And what is the real intention of the government?
Well, actually, Neelu, I had written an article about this when it first came out in the media that this was being planned, the 50% expansion amendment bill, and then the amendment to the Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam, arguing that the ruling party is using women's reservation as a means to, number one, expand the Lok Sabha to 816. This plus 800 number for some reason seems to matter greatly to them. They built a house of 888, a parliament that would allow. So in any case, so first of all, they wanted to do that. And second of all, once they can do that expansion, they want to do delimitation for these 816 seats that they are proposing. Now, we have seen their experience of delimitation in both Jammu and Kashmir and in Assam. In both places, we have seen communal gerrymandering. In Assam, we have also seen political gerrymandering, where Gaurav Gogoi lost his seat. The communal gerrymandering in both Jammu and Kashmir and Assam was extraordinary. Not only were more than 10 seats in which Muslims had considerable influence erased in the Assam delimitation. In the Jammu and Kashmir one, as well as in Assam, what you saw was constituencies being created that had neither geographic compactness, nor administrative continuity, nor ease of communication, nor any ease of public convenience. Not to mention administrative convenience. I mean, you had the creation of a Lok Sabha constituency, which was bifurcated by the Pir Panjal range in Jammu and Kashmir. It was a very high mountain range. There's only one connecting road, the Mughal Road, which seasonally closes in the winter and snowfall and so on. So what on earth are you doing creating such a constituency? In Assam, again, you see U-shaped constituencies. You have one panchayat belonging to one assembly segment, which is in another assembly segment. It's utterly absurd. And it's so obvious that the only reason can be communal. Because when you look at it, there's only one logic that emerges. In Jammu and Kashmir, they created new Hindu majority constituencies, which numbered like 50,000. as against Muslim majority constituencies of, in one case, 1.8 lakhs. What is utterly meaningless. So, of course, it's very dangerous. And of course, delimitation needs to be put off. The second point about delimitation is, first of all, you generally decide seats on the basis of your census results, which will come possibly N27, possibly 2028. And it's only after that that you sit down and you look at two sets of criteria. You look at population counts, but in population counts, you also have to give credit to those states which have managed to reduce their fertility rates due to investment in human development, human welfare, women's education, women's financial independence. That is why these states have managed to reduce their fertility rates, because they have.
According to what you were saying, Radha, so the main intention of the government is to bring in limitations so that they can do communal gerrymandering, which of course gives them political dividends, but which is not suitable to the opposition parties. After all, Sonia Gandhi has also written about the fact that there has to be an equitable distribution. It can't be that the smaller states are deprived and the bigger states have a bigger share. So what about that as well? I mean, I'm just trying to understand what the government is trying to do through this delimitation plan.
They're trying to rush it through for two reasons. One, that they want to quite separately agree 50% expansion of parliament. That they do not want to leave to the delimitation commission. They want to, if I understand correctly, where you had under Article 81, you had a freeze on expansion in 1976 and again under Vajpayee in 2002. They will then introduce an amendment which lifts the freeze and talks about expansion. So that's one thing they want to do. Then if they can achieve that, then they can do delimitation. But they want to do delimitation using the 2011 census, not the forthcoming census. Now, why would they want to do that? You know, this is all speculation. I cannot claim to have any government sources. But the logic is, the reason they want to do that is that if they can do large-scale communal gerrymandering across this country and political gerrymandering without the courts hauling them up, then 2029 election becomes a lot easier for them. That is their intention or their thinking, I would imagine, from what we know, from what facts we know.
This is all a planning. This is all a planning or part of the planning to win the 2029 elections, which of course looks very, very difficult politically. And if the elections are fought freely and fairly, then the going is tough for the Modi government. So it's just like making things easier and facile for them so that they can capture more seats.
Yes. That would appear to be the thinking and the intention and the planning. And they have been planning this for a while. I mean, it's not an accident that some of us decided to set up a group on census and delimitation. We anticipated all of this looking at what was happening. However, we should also not lose sight of the issue of women's reservation, which I think Sonia Gandhi has also said in her article. And yes, she has mentioned that Mr. Kharge had said, why don't you do it now, back in 2023. And the CPM has also issued a press statement saying that it has nothing to do with census and delimitation. And you can implement it now if you wish. In our petition too, we have said that it has nothing to do with delimitation or expansion, and those two bills should be rejected outright.
No, but
They
how
can
does
be
a
discussed.
man understand this, Radha? It's like putting the bitter and the sweet pill together. Sweet pill is that, look, we are giving more reservation to women. We should be celebrating about it. But at the same time, there is an underhand dealing on delimitation where BJP is trying to further its political ends. So how does a common man understand? And how do we explain that this is a very dangerous portent which is being put out by the Modi government?
Look, I think these are two separate points. First of all, in terms of the common man understanding, I mean, I'm sure you have engaged in tea stall conversations, as have I. The common man is pretty politically astute and sophisticated. And sad to say, I feel that the common man or woman can understand political nuance and subtlety far more than the media, which is dependent on sound bites. So let's not confuse the two. The common man or woman is not into sound bites. They will like to sit at a tea stall and have a proper discussion. This is a media problem. How do you explain it to the media? Because the media has difficulty taking complexity on board. And let me say further than that, that's the Indian media in particular. If you look at some of the European or even one or two American media, they are perfectly able to take 3 points at a time and deal with them. Now, what are the points over here? The points are very simple. Number one, this initiative to expand must be rejected. Number two, any initiative to tie census and delimitation to women's reservation must be rejected. Any expansion has to be based on census results, and we have an ongoing census. So that debate should take place when the census results are out. It's absurd to try and preempt the census. This is preemption. You cannot preempt the census. So even for the media, this should be kind of obvious. Why are you connecting these? These are not connected. Very simple. Then let us shift the focus onto women's reservation itself. It is very clear that this act needs amendment. You have to remove the link to the census and to delimitation from this act, because women's reservation is a flat rate 33%. If you want to link it to the census, then women's reservation will have to be 48 to 49%. Will any of our parliamentarians, male parliamentarians, accept that? They are reluctant to even accept 33%. This whole expansion, what is this expansion thing about? It's only to placate male parliamentarians. Expand so that you can get 33% new seats, which will be for women.
No, and also another thing that, what is the basis for the 50% reservation?
This
There
is the
no
basis.
I've
Yes.
seen the MPs, they are writing that we don't have any proposal with us in our hand. They have called a special session, no copy, nothing has been shared.
That is entirely true, and that is frankly not new. We have seen them do this for the past 15 years. So why anyone is surprised that the bill will only be given on the morning, I don't know. That is how they act all the time. In this case, what we do have is selective leaks, because they try to go and talk to opposition parties and get them on board by offering a SOP here or a SOP there. And that then started to get leaked, so we know that there's 50% expansion being planned. Now, you asked what are the numbers. The numbers are also being planned only because we have what we might call an unofficial male reservation. In order to give 33% to women, you have to create 33% new seats. And in order to create 33% new seats, you have to expand parliament by 50%. That's the mathematical equation. Of course, it's not necessary. You can apply 33% reservation today on the current strength of parliament. But the facts are that most male MPs are not ready to accept that. And while we can call them out, and we do, it is very difficult for other. I mean, they have the majority in parliament. Political parties, I think, have failed in this. After all, think of this: the Congress has piloted women's reservation from 1996, 30 years. Why have their male MPs not come on board yet?
Absolutely. No, but I'm just wondering, Radha, that
I don't know.
but how are parties like Congress going to build their narrative now? Now, today I saw Supriya Shrinate holding a press conference, and she was largely talking about the fact that delimitation is the main plank, and it's not that they are wanting to bring in reservation for the women. But what else beyond that? What have the opposition parties? What will they say? I mean, BJP will call it their master stroke. What will the opposition parties do? What do they have to say now?
Well, this is what our women's petition is saying, is that this is what you can not only say, you can make them do.
Yes.
First and foremost, as I said, you have to delink. The opposition parties also have to delink delimitation and census and say that belongs to a separate session altogether. This session should be only about women's reservation. Logically, 33% has nothing to do with population counts. It can be applied now to an expanded to whatever. So that issue of date, you'll have to somehow think about. Which date should it come into force? Meantime, there are several amendments that are required in this, apart from deleting the census and delimitation from the Act. The Act should have, it should have also, there should be an Act for 33% reservation in the Rajya Sabha. In this Act, it has no clause saying that the 33% breakup has to be according to the existing share of state seats. It has to be proportionate to that. So, if UP has 80, then 33% of 80. Tamil Nadu has 42, then or 39, then 33% of that. So that clause has to come in to recognize that state seat shares are extremely important. That is an issue for the South we know very well. And we just discussed it, that there has to be consideration for those states which have actually performed so well in raising the human development index of their people, men and women and children. So that has to be there. That again is a separate discussion. But this clause needs to come in here as well about the proportions. Thirdly, there is no provision for marginalized and vulnerable women who may wish to contest elections. So it's being argued that bring this clause in, saying that there will be state funding for the election campaigns of marginalized and vulnerable women. So these are three major additions and two minor deletions that we are suggesting, which are eminently doable. Now, we know, however, that something like what we are proposing should not take more than a few hours to debate, agree, and pass. But we do know that this is a very contentious parliament. The BJP people are going to try to ram expansion and so on. So if the opposition succeeds in getting these amendments through, then it'll be a major victory against, and they can certainly claim that it advances that they have.
We have a recent example. We have a recent example where FCRA amendments were being brought in, and the government had to postpone it further. So why not do this with this as well?
This should never have been included It has nothing to do with women's reservation. So the opposition has to first of all say, this has nothing to do with women's reservation. You are using women's reservation to push a different agenda. Now come back to women's reservation, correct what is wrong in the Nari Vandan Shakti Adhiniyam. That act actually has many things wrong with it. Then finally, we have suggested that given the many suspicions of the ECI that have arisen, and then of the delimitation that has been done, which I have described already, do not identify the first 33% according to this system. Identify them by setting up state committees. Make sure that the membership of the state committees, you have one ECI, two state EC, and 15 to 16 members of political parties contesting and the number of members of each political party must be decided according to their vote share in the 2024 election. That gives the opposition a far greater playing field, because the vote shares of the opposition were much greater than the seats that they won. In fact, the vote shares in some are almost the same. They're almost equal of the NDA and the India Alliance. So then you can make sure that this kind of gerrymandering or even allocations, because they cannot redraw seats, that is a separate process. This 33% comes after already you have done delimitation. So we have an existing 543 based on delimitation.
Right.
You can get on that too. As I said, that's a difficult one, so let's not harp on that too much.
Yes.
But the point over here that the opposition should focus on is that once you have state-level committees, special state-level committees to decide on the 33%, you have far greater influence on which constituencies are allocated. You know, somebody suggested, why don't you just use the Panchayati Raj system, which is 1 out of every 3 seats. I looked at that and I saw that the problem with that one, I did it for UP. Do you know what the results were? 15 seats of the SP would be converted, 8 seats of the BJP, and the Congress's Amethi. So this Panchayati system will not work for this. That is why we're saying state-level committees where you all sit together and the decision has to be by majority vote.
Yes.
ECI cannot override. That's why we're saying this. Now, this one will be really contested. But I would say to opposition parties, this is in your serious interest. Because if you can get it through over here, you can get it through then on the composition of the Delimitation Commission as well.
Yes.
And then you can make sure that they can't get away with doing what they've been doing.
Absolutely. So in looking at the things in entirety, rather, that what about the caste census? Does it look super delayed now? The intention is to have it as much delayed as possible.
I mean, it does look like the reason for asking for 2011 census was also to avoid the caste issue.
Yes.
Because the 2011 census, they did a caste census, but that was never revealed in public, never released in public, I should say. Now, clearly, they are very nervous of what this census will throw up. And they've already had inner caste conflict with the UGC proposals. So clearly, any way they can of avoiding that, they are going to look at.
So, my last question to you, Radha, is that, of course, the government's intention is very clear, and you've explained that very well. That it does look that they are unnecessarily trying to link, in the name of women's reservation, they are wanting to bring in delimitation. So, I don't know how successful the opposition will be, though they have the agenda cut out. You have given them suggestions. You have a petition also, which is ready. Now it is up to the opposition how it takes it forward from here, how much it can convince the government. Can it really step on the government's agenda and make its points across? But in the end, what would you really say to the government? It's an insecure government which is trying to bring in this kind of maybe an underhand tactics just to stay in power, just to sustain themselves in power.
Well, yes, of course. There's no question of that. I mean, think about the special intensive revisions. Whether there is intent or not, you have deleted a huge number of names from the electoral lists. You have not, in Bengal, it seems that more than 20 lakh petitions are pending before these judicial tribunals because they simply haven't been able to look at them. Now, how can you possibly proceed with elections in such a situation? What you are basically telling people is that their vote doesn't matter. They don't matter. They don't matter. They don't even have the entitlement to a vote. Everything has to be dependent only on whether the government likes you or doesn't like you. You have no rights as a citizen anymore. And that is a truly, it's something that I think the people of India are beginning to realize. And it's something that ought to frighten or lead the BJP to some reforms. They have not yet done so because unfortunately the courts are not holding them to account. But Neelu, I don't want, what worries me about this current debate is that many groups, in their concerns over census and delimitation, are allowing those issues to overshadow women's reservation. When we say de-link, we are saying de-link and focus on women's reservation and what you can get done now. And frankly, that would give the opposition an advantage. To be seen to be acting purely negatively is never helpful. And merely to say that this is the BJP's intention and that is the BJP's intention is not going to help you as much as saying, here are the positives of what you can do, what we can do in this parliamentary session, and pushing to get them through.
So the special session is going to start from 16th, but whatever the intentions are, Radha Kumar has explained it to you very well. And how should the opposition now gear up? There's also a solution to that as well. So we'll have to see how things unfold. And but with Sonia Gandhi's article and the delimitation meetings which have happened, of which Radha Kumar is a part of it, we'll have to see how things now unfold in Parliament. Thank you so much, Radha, for joining on HW News.
I do want to add one point, though, if I might.
Yes,
I think that this women's petition is actually rather more important than many initiatives, because it has brought together something like, first of all, 490 people in 1.5 days, 1 day actually, have signed this petition. They come from more than 95 cities and districts of this country. They comprise women from at least 36 different groups. That is huge. And it must not be minimized or diminished. I mean, I hope you do another show just on that petition.
Sure, why not?
With perhaps my colleagues.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, we won't leave this issue. There are various aspects to this entire issue. We'll keep talking about it, Radha, and we'll want you to come on our programs more, and of course your colleagues also who are working on this issue. So I'll have to end it here. Thank you so much, Radha, for joining on HW News.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care.